So we're going to get started, and I'd like to welcome everyone for Lunch and Learn. And I was putting little notes in the chat there that we do start at 12:15, these events. However, I'm unable to allow people or put that in Zoom because Zoom doesn't recognize that. So it doesn't recognize 15. So I have to put it in for 12 o'clock. So we do start the Lunch and Learns at 12:15. And as long as you're okay with being in the waiting room, we always will let you in, and Fong's letting people in now as we speak. So we'll get started. And I just wanted to do that as a little way of housekeeping to let you know we start at 12:15 for the Lunch and Learns, and we always end at 12:45. Joining me today is Fong Pommier, who is a program consultant for the Family and Community Health Sciences here at Rutgers Cooperative Extension. And she's currently also a nutrition and dietetics intern on an accelerated graduate track at Rowan University with special interest in food science, integrative nutrition, and public health. And in a few years, she's going to become a registered dietitian and nutritionist. And she is a wonderful addition to the Rutgers Cooperative Extension Family and Community Health Sciences Department in Cape May County, and great support from me. And she's going places. She's got a lot going on. So I've asked her to join me for part of the presentation today, and I'm very excited to have her along. So when we get a little bit further back in the presentation, she will be joining, weighing in. I'm Christine Zellers, and I'm the Family and Community Health Sciences Family Health and Community Health Sciences nutrition educator / assistant professor. Today's topic is sugar, how sweet it is. And as you can see, I included Fong there as one of our presenters. In accordance with federal law and the U.S. Department of Agriculture's USDA Civil Rights Regulation and Policy, this institution is prohibited from discriminating on the basis of race, color, origin, national origin, sex, age, and disability. Rutgers Cooperative Extension is part of the Rutgers, New Jersey Agricultural Experiment Station. We're a land-grant university, and that means it has cooperative extension services throughout New Jersey to support the community with educational information that is scientifically research-based. Rutgers Cooperative Extension is a partnership between the Board of County Commissioners, Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, and USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And we have faculty now in 21 of the 21 New Jersey counties. So we have faculty all across the state of New Jersey, or staff. And we are composed of 3 departments, and they include agriculture and natural resources, 4-H youth development, and family and community health sciences, or FCHS, which is the department that Fong and I are here representing. In FCHS, we provide outreach in New Jersey and beyond on topics that are related to nutrition, chronic disease prevention, food safety, and overall wellness. I'm going to give you a list at the end of the presentation with our social media handles and our website information. And I hope that you'll follow us on social media and look at our website. It always has listings of upcoming programs and what we're doing in all of the department areas. And we're always happy to have the community joining us. So without further ado, let's move on to our objectives for today. The objectives for today are to understand sugar and its effects on the body. We're also going to provide all of you with an understanding of sugar and what it looks like on the nutrition facts label. So when you're reading nutrition facts labels, you can understand and have a concept of what you're eating. And then finally, we're going to provide tips on how to be sweet without consuming too much added sugar. All right, so this slide has a lot of information on it. And one of the things I really want to point out to you in the beginning as you're listening is that there's little asterisks here. You'll see them, and it says links. So as I notated at the bottom of the slide, links indicate that the studies are being done, but conclusive evidence is lacking because of other environmental and dietary factors. So as I walk through this slide and you hear a little bit more about it, you'll have an understanding of that. But I wanted to make sure to point it out to you ahead of time. Sugar has, like other parts of our diet, really been villainized with warnings to avoid added sugar. And while sugar has been held responsible for many chronic illnesses, there's still some information that needs to be verified to conclude that, for instance, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and cancer are directly caused by eating too much sugar. Because there's so many various behaviors that could be occurring in a person's life, it's really hard to convict sugar of being that one dastardly demon in our diet that's, causing all these diseases. Rather, sugar likely has some accomplices like fat, sodium, eating too much sugar, so overeating sugar, or lack of daily movement. And even though sugar may not be the only reason for chronic disease, sugar should be consumed in moderation. And it likely got its bad names because we're all eating too much of it. So, when the guidelines came out and they started like really, clamping down on how much was recommended, or not recommended, but how much was eaten, it was because we're eating way too much of it. So let's take a little bit closer look. In a literature review, which summarizes various studies. So this literature review looked at 136 different studies, and it was published in the National Center for Biotechnology Information, or the NCBI. They reviewed and concluded that while there are links to many diseases, as I put here, singling out sugar can really be difficult. So we can't, it's hard to blame it. Yes, it could be a culprit, but it might not stand alone as the only culprit. That's not to say the link isn't there, and rather suggests moderate consumption of sugar could reduce the incidence of these diseases, coupled with physical activity, watching how much you eat, and being cautious about consumption of other possible culprits like fat and salt. So in a nutshell, we need to consume added sugar in moderation versus eating too much of it. There's no recommendation for added sugar in our diet. So as you can see up there in the corner, we get natural sugar from fruits, vegetables, and dairy products. So we don't really need added sugar in our diet. And added sugar usually, we'll talk about a little bit more, that comes from candy, soda, baked products, those type of things, in some places that you might not even realize. So the Center for Chronic Disease, or CDC, recommends that 10% of your daily caloric intake per day contains sugar, added sugar. So they only want 10% of that to be added sugar in the daily diet. The American Heart Association says 6 teaspoons for women and 9 for men daily. Sorry, ladies, we always get shorted. And this means that 25 grams for women, or 100 calories, and 36 grams for men, and 150 calories. So the American Heart Association recommendations are lower, and they're more around like the 5% mark of total calorie consumption based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So the CDC says 10%, and the AHA, American Heart Association, is saying about 5 to 7 with their recommendations. So much like the CDC, the dietary guidelines for Americans also suggest the consumption be less than 10% of daily calories. That's about 50 grams per day. And remember, the range for the American Heart Association was 25 to 36 grams a day. The thought process behind this is that 10% is adequate. So the thought process that they're thinking here, 10% in an adequate nutrient diet should mean there's little room for sugar. So if you're, plainly stated, if you're eating a well-balanced diet with fruits and vegetables, lean protein, low fat or fat-free dairy, and whole grains, by the time you get done eating all that good stuff, there should be a very little room for the sugary foods. So that's why that is a 10% recommendation. So what they want you to do is try to consume the good stuff first, and then maybe think about that special treat that might have added sugar in it. Added sugar products with high amounts of added sugar are often low in nutrients, and that's why they make that recommendation. They're also high in calories. If you don't move physically and then you eat too many high-calorie foods, it's going to be really difficult for you to maintain a healthy weight. Lack of physical activity and high amounts of sugary beverages and foods are what cause the dietary guidelines for Americans to recommend limiting consumption of sugary beverages. The dietary guidelines are based on scientific information and what's going on in society. And they made the recommendation to limit added sugar consumption because of the obesity problem in our country. High sugar products also traditionally, as I said, they lack nutrients. So think of a candy bar, for instance. Usually the content is some chemicals and some sugar, maybe a little bit of milk in there, if it's milk chocolate, I guess. But they also might throw a nut in there for some protein. But overall, there's not a lot of nutrient-dense food in there. So again, that's where you want to eat added sugar in moderation so you can maintain a healthy weight. And I think that the American Heart Association really put it well. I like this comparison. So they said, think of your daily caloric needs as a budget, just like you would your household budget. You want to spend most of your calories on essentials to meet your nutrients. So those essentials would be those nutrient dense foods, right? Use the leftover or discretionary calories for extras that provide little or no nutritional benefits, such as sugar. So just as you would use your discretionary money for extra things, like maybe going to the movies or out to dinner, you want to do the same thing with your added sugar calories. So even though various credible sources like the CDC, AHA, and dietary guidelines make a suggestion on sugar, there's no one right or wrong, except to eat high quality nutrient dense food and use sugary foods as a once in a while food. So think about that. That's probably the easiest way, instead of, trying to total up, is this 10%, and as we get through the slides, you'll see a little bit more as to why it's important and how you can kind of gauge it just by the habits that you form and the things you look at. So you can see here on this slide that a nutrition facts label, and you see with the arrow that is in, I guess, red or orange, it has total sugar listed there. And a good way of explaining the difference between the total sugars and the added sugars is to use the example of chocolate milk. So if you were to take milk, it would have some total sugars in it because milk contains lactose. So that naturally occurring sugar would count in the total sugar. But then down in the added sugar, if it was chocolate milk, it would go into added sugar because chocolate obviously, again, has that added sugar in there. So that's just a way to try to think about the difference between total and added sugar. I was trying to give you an easy comparison between the chocolate milk and the regular milk. And then on the far left, you see a percentage, and this would tell you the percentage of daily consumption. So for sugar, for instance, if this product was a soda, it would probably say 83% of the daily value. So what that would mean is it's 83% of the suggested 10% daily allowance for added sugar for the day. So again, a comparison, if you drank one soda and then maybe a few ounces extra, it would likely meet the 10% suggested recommended for the daily allowance. And then it would say 100% if you had those two that were like totaling up. But because this is just one product, it just has the 83%. You can really see how drinking several sodas a day could add up quickly if just one would be 83%. And they're piling on those extra calories and empty calories and not giving you a lot of nutrition. As you can also see from this slide, to figure out how many grams you're consuming, it's hard I always used to ask in my classes, what's 4 grams of sugar? And people are like, I don't know, because, we can't really relate that to anything. So to make it relatable, 4 grams is 1 teaspoon. So if you're consuming a 12-ounce can of soda, that's approximately 39 grams, depending on what type of soda it is. So you are drinking just under 10 teaspoons of sugar in 1 12-ounce can of soda. So to give you a little comparison and a little look at that, this glass, I measured it out. It's a 13-ounce glass, and that would be the equivalent of the 9.75 teaspoons of sugar in a soda, and a 12-ounce soda, and it is a 13-ounce glass, so it's relatively close. So you can see it's quite a chunk of sugar there that you're consuming every time you have a glass of or a can of soda. Okay. So obviously we are aware of foods that have high sugar in them, like soda. Everybody knows about sweetened beverages, candies, and cookies. But they're also sweet. They're also sweet that we would naturally kind of think to look on the nutrition facts label and say, okay, these are sweet. Let me look. What's the added sugar? But it's important to remember that if you're consuming a soda a day and a cookie, you've probably already eaten that 10% of your calories in added sugar. So remember to add them up. Okay. And again, you're probably not getting all your nutrients if you're getting there really quick with foods. Some other things that might be sweet that you might not even realize because they appear healthy, or they might, not be so sweet. For instance, a cup of low-fat yogurt or a small yogurt could have 11 teaspoons of sugar in it. So you want to look, and again, I've said that in the sodium and the fat presentation, that if you, sometimes they take things out to make them healthier, like, fat or salt, and then they put other things in like sugar. So if they're taking sugar out, they might be adding other things. So just be aware of that. But the low fat, they might have added sugar because we as Americans like that sweet taste. So we have it added in there in the form of 11 teaspoons of sugar in a cup. Another example of this is the 2 tablespoons of barbecue sauce. Have 1 teaspoon of sugar in that 2 tablespoons. So again, that's a large percentage of the item is sugary. And then ketchup also is another culprit, and not so sweet, but ketchup could have 1 teaspoon of sugar in 1 tablespoon serving. So be cautious of those. Another area that has become very popular, I have the coffee there on the side. Coffees you purchase already are made, they're a nice treat, and they could contain upwards of 70 grams of sugar in them. So that's a lot. It's almost the same as 2 cans of cola. So if you're thinking, if you go and get that special treat, that's fine. You go get it once in a while, that's okay. But if you do it every day, it could add up to a lot of extra calories that you might not even realize you're getting. So I would try making your own coffee, which I've started doing, especially here during the pandemic, but try making your own coffee and adding low-fat milk yourself. And then you kind of know how much sugar is going on in there as you put it in. And also you could, maybe if you're still going to go to the store every day, that's fine, but look at the nutrition facts. Ask the coffee house for the nutrition facts and see what might be a little less in sugar, so that you're not, adding up every day, not even realizing it, and drinking those calories. And again, missing out on nutrient dense foods. Always search the nutrition facts label on food that you're eating, because it may surprise you what's in there. You never know. I was a little surprised by, barbecue and ketchup when I first wrote this presentation years ago. So other names for sugar when you are reading those ingredients, the food ingredients label, you might want to notice that they're not specifically sugar all the time, that are listed clearly, but it could contain a lot of sugar when you look at the nutrition facts label. So sugar could be there in hidden places with names like brown sugar, corn sweetener, corn syrup, dextrose, fructose, glucose, high fructose corn syrup, honey, lactose, malt syrup, maltose, molasses, raw sugar, and sucrose. Any word that ends in OSE, O-S-E, likely is a sugar. So you want to be on the lookout for these when you're reading the ingredients food labels. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Fong. I asked her to contribute on our artificial sweeteners, because I realized that was probably one of the questions everybody would have. And so she's going to take over for the next few slides, and I'll jump back in. Take it away.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everybody. So it is undeniable that sugar is everywhere nowadays, and it's almost impossible to completely eliminate it from our diet, which makes it very difficult for those who need to keep blood sugar at bay, or who are trying to lose weight by reducing added sugar in their diet. So that's where artificial sweeteners come in handy. Artificial sweeteners are synthetic sugar substitutes, meaning they are artificially derived compounds from plants or herbs that duplicate the sweetness of regular table sugar, but they are not natural sugars. They are anywhere from 200 to 20,000 times sweeter than table sugar. They offer the taste of sweetness without adding any calories, vitamins, or minerals to our diet. And for that reason, they are often also referred to as non-nutritive sweeteners or non-caloric sweeteners. And fun fact is that saccharin was the first artificial sweetener synthesized in 1879 by accident. Next slide, please. Okay, thanks. Nowadays, we are seeing an increase in the use of artificial sweeteners in a variety of processed dietary and medicinal products. If you want to cut down on your sugar intake while still enjoying some sweetness, artificial sweeteners can be some of those solutions. Or if you prefer to avoid them entirely, be sure to read the food label, as Krista said. The FDA regulates the artificial sweeteners as food additives. So up to date, there are 8 non-nutritive sweeteners that have been approved, including aspartame, acesulfame potassium, luhangu or monk fruit extract, neotame, saccharin, stevia, sucralose, and ephantame is the latest one that was approved in 2014. The FDA considers them to be generally recognized as safe or GRAS. As I mentioned in the last slide, these non-nutritive sweeteners are anywhere from 200 to 20,000 times sweeter than table sugar. They can be found in dietary food and beverages. Even though most artificial sweeteners allowed for use in food are deemed safe by the FDA, according to a study published in this NCBI called Artificial Sweeteners as a Sugar Substitute, are they really safe? There is some evidence that artificial sweeteners could be harmful to some special groups like pregnant and lactating women, children, diabetics, migraine, and epilepsy patients. In addition, individuals with the rare metabolic disorder called phenylketonuria or PKU, their body cannot break down the amino acid phenylalanine, which is found in aspartame, and it is one of the most popular artificial sweeteners you can find in food products these days. So those with PKU should avoid aspartame by be careful when you read the food label. Back to you, Chris. Thank you.
I couldn't find the bar to let myself back in. Thank you, Fong. That was great. And again, I wanted to make sure we covered the artificial sweeteners because I know it is a subject, it's one of the subjects that are in the news. And I know that's where a lot of people get their information from. But, as Fong mentioned, they have been, recognized by the FDA and whatnot as okay to consume. So, it comes down to a choice, and just having that information, I think, is good. So I want to keep on schedule and move along. I would like for all of you to ask all of you to please go to this website, or you can pick your phone up. And if you pick your phone up and hold it up with the camera open, it'll take you right to the website. So if you'd be so kind as to go ahead on there and give some feedback with the evaluation, that would be very helpful to me. It allows me to know more about you and your needs, as well as how we're doing with teaching the classes. So I appreciate you going there. I'll also send that out as a follow-up as well if you want to take it later. Again, it's greatly appreciated. I'm also at this time going to release a poll just to get an idea, what you've learned after viewing. If you want to listen to the last slide, that's fine. But I know we're on a tight schedule with having, folks wanting to get back to lunch and whatnot. So I'm going to, go with that. Let me see, I just have a little, okay. So just to wrap up here, let's discuss ways to cut back on eating sugar. So, we talked about eating it in moderation. And if you're trying to cut back on how much you're eating, there's several ways you can do it. So for instance, maybe try making your own beverages like tea and coffee. And that goes for other beverages as well, like making your own iced tea or making your own lemonade and adding a little bit of sugar at a time so that you, don't overload on sugar and it's appealing to your taste, but make sure you don't add too much in doing that. Also, read the nutrition facts label. Both Fong and I have said that a few times. It's important to know, and it is kind of alarming sometimes when you've been eating something and you're like, wow, that has a lot of sugar, I didn't realize. So take a peek at the nutrition facts label. Also read that ingredients on the food label. That's important to know exactly if you're finding any of those OS things. And you are going to see things like milk will have lactose in it, right? But that is a naturally occurring one. So if you compare milk with the ingredients label versus the nutrition facts label, you'll see that, the total sugars would be there because there's lactose in it, but not necessarily the added sugars, unless you are adding chocolate to that product, then it would have some of the added sugars, as I mentioned before. You also want to try to drink or eat less of sugary products. So for instance, if you're, if there's something that you really enjoy, I'm not saying take everything out because that's not really rational. And when we try to take everything out, then we feel defeated in other ways. So just, try to eat less of it, or, try to eat it in moderation as you go through the day, weigh it out. So you're, keeping things for special treats. Again, keeping that nutrient dense food a priority, and then making the sugary beverage or the sugary product a once in a while type thing. Try making your own sauces and soups from scratch, because that's going to cut down not only on sugar, but it could also cut down on the amount of fat as well. Keep sugary drinks to a minimum, as I mentioned. Try to eat whole foods. Whole foods, the difference, there's not added sugar in an apple, as you can see there on the screen, but there's sugar in it that's naturally occurring, and that sugar has fiber attached to it. So I always used to use the kind of way to tell the children about it when I taught with the kids was, you would have the apple, and the apple has fiber attached in it. So it goes into your body. It's like, oh, this is cool. It has fiber. We're going to break all the vitamins and minerals down. But when you eat like a candy bar, have you ever noticed how you feel kind of up, right? So the candy bar is like being on a roller coaster. So you get that sugar, it comes in really quick because there's nothing really there to slow it down. There's no fiber, and then it goes out really quick. So then you feel that kind of plunge at the end of the day. Another important tip to try to remember, I don't have it up there, is, a lot of times people around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they get tired because they haven't had a meal since noon, and they're not going to have dinner to maybe 5 or 6. So think about a healthy snack in the middle of the day. So, try and eat whole foods, but bring that apple to work, or try to add, a snack in the middle of the day that's healthy. So you keep your sugar levels, your sugar levels level, so that you're not like all of a sudden crashing and feeling really hungry and grabbing for something that's not so healthy to get that energy level up, because sometimes that's a reason that we're craving sugary things. Also try to use lemon or cucumbers or fruit to flavor water, let that soak and infuse in there. A lot of people like it that way. They're not water drinkers, but they'll add little things like that they don't have any, added sugar in them, and they don't have the artificial sugars in them either. So that's a healthy way to substitute and try to get your water in to help. Again, part of the day you need water in your diet. So it's a good thing to do that way. You can substitute sugary beverages for water in general, and before or during a workout. So try to not use a sugary beverage during your workout. And, those power drinks, they do have a lot of sugar in them. Measure out sugar when you're adding it to food, and trying a little less in your coffee and tea once in a while or all the time. Substitute cakes and cookies for dessert and fresh fruit. Choose fresh fruit for snacks to sweeten up your day. And then finally, a trick I always used with my children was, they had waffles in the morning all the time with peanut butter. So instead of using the peanut butter and jelly, we would use peanut butter and fruit. So that's a good substitute too. If you can, instead of using jellies, which, do have a lot of sugar in them, you could, use that instead. So these are the references to the talk today that we used. And then these are, as I promised in the beginning, this is the contact information for us. And you can see we have our website for Cape May County, NJ Rutgers Cooperative Extension. And then we have the individual Family Community Health Sciences for the whole department, as well as the one here in Cape May County. And then we have the handles for Facebook that are on there for the FCHS Cape May County and the Rutgers Cooperative Extension of Cape May County. So we do have about 2 minutes left, really quick. If there's anyone that wants to add anything into the chat before we sign off for the day, I'm going to stop my sharing. I'd be glad to try to answer them. And as always, I do follow up with emails at the end of the presentation. So if you are interested in that, I don't know why we have somebody else's picture on there for the speaker, but if you're interested in that, then any of the information here, then you can follow up with me with the email if you have questions or anything like that. All right, we had a good group join us today. Thank you all for coming and joining us. And if you don't have any further questions, any questions then in the chat, then we'll move along and stop the presentation. Anybody? All right, well, thank you all for joining us and have a healthy day. Enjoy some sunshine. Thanks for coming.